Has the world finally lost patience with Israel? New Zealand just said the quiet part out loud. In a move that stunned diplomats worldwide, New Zealand's Prime Minister Christopher Luxon declared that Israel's leader Benjamin Netanyahu has lost the plot, his harshest criticism yet of the ongoing Gaza offensive. Luxon didn't stop there. He called Israel's latest attacks utterly unacceptable and blasted the lack of humanitarian aid and forced displacement as utterly appalling. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. New Zealand, a nation known for moderation and its close ties to the United States and other Western allies, is now openly considering recognition of a Palestinian state. Even more, Luxon's rebuke came as part of a joint statement with Australia, Britain, France, and Canada, warning that Netanyahu's new ground assault will only worsen what they call a catastrophic humanitarian situation. When a U.S.-aligned country breaks ranks this publicly, it is more than just a diplomatic spat. It signals that the traditional Western shield around Israeli policy is starting to crack. And as international outrage grows, the risks and stakes for global alliances, national reputations, and humanitarian responsibility have never been higher. So what pushed New Zealand, a country rarely at the center of global controversy, to take such a bold stand now? To understand this dramatic shift, we need to trace the events that led to Luxon's extraordinary rebuke. Why did New Zealand suddenly risk its global reputation, and what could it lose or gain by breaking ranks on Gaza? For decades, New Zealand played it safe, quietly following its Western partners and rarely stirring the pot on Middle Eastern issues. But when raw images of destruction and starvation in Gaza flooded news feeds, something snapped. This time, outrage surged far beyond the protest lines. Across the globe, screens lit up with footage of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushing forward with a controversial new military campaign. He insisted it was the only route to peace, declaring Australians would do it too if attacked. But behind those words, even close allies feared the operation would mean nothing but more bloodshed. As the humanitarian catastrophe worsened, leaders from Britain, Canada, Australia, and a host of European nations warned the suffering in Gaza had become unimaginable, demanding unrestricted aid and signaling growing impatience with Israel's tactics. Meanwhile, anger spread inside Israel itself. In Tel Aviv, thousands demonstrated against Netanyahu, calling for a ceasefire and the return of hostages. Yet it was New Zealand's response that sent shockwaves through the diplomatic world. In a stunning move, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon slammed Netanyahu, saying he had lost the plot, and condemned the utterly unacceptable attacks, as well as the forced displacement and annexation of Gaza, breaking sharply from the cautious language of other Western leaders. This was more than just moral outrage. It opened the door to a seismic shift. New Zealand is now openly considering recognition of a Palestinian state, joining an expanding list of nations daring to defy the old consensus. The stakes are massive. As many as 1 million Palestinians face displacement, and New Zealand's stance could tip the scales in international politics, risking alliances and its global standing. Even the halls of New Zealand's parliament have become battlegrounds, with Green MP Chloe Swarbrick thrown out for accusing colleagues of spinelessness over their refusal to sanction Israel for alleged war crimes. Oversimplifying this crisis risks missing what's really on the line, not just the lives of Palestinians and Israelis, but the very fabric of international order. New Zealand's bold move forces the world to ask, is this the dawn of a new global consensus on Palestine? And at what price will New Zealand pay for shattering the status quo? But why did New Zealand choose this moment to break its silence? And what behind-the-scenes pressures pushed Luxon to the brink? To understand, we have to look closer at the mounting forces reshaping global attitudes toward Gaza. Lost the plot. When was the last time you heard a sitting world leader use those words against another, especially toward Israel's prime minister? This isn't just a diplomatic slip, it's a shot fired in a high-stakes global debate, with reputations, alliances, and lives hanging in the balance. New Zealand's Christopher Luxon has shattered protocol, But what pushes a typically careful nation to risk so much? And what dominoes could fall next for the world's approach to Gaza and the future of Palestine? Luxon's condemnation is not only rare, it's historic. He did not simply critique Benjamin Netanyahu's decisions, he denounced the ongoing assault on Gaza as utterly unacceptable, adding, "I think he has lost the plot." This is the boldest language New Zealand or any Western leader in recent memory has used against Israel's actions in Gaza, signaling a stark break from the guarded, coded statements usually offered by allies. But these are not empty words. Luxon's rebuke came as New Zealand debates whether to formally recognize Palestine as a sovereign state, a move with both symbolic and practical consequences. For a country long regarded as a measured Western voice, this represents a tectonic shift, threatening to disrupt the web of alliances that has historically shielded Israel from such open censure. The stakes are spreading far beyond New Zealand. Australia, the United Kingdom, Germany, and Italy have joined forces, issuing a joint condemnation of Israel's plan to seize Gaza City. Their warning is blunt. Another ground offensive will worsen what international observers already call a catastrophic humanitarian situation, a crisis that has reached levels previously thought unimaginable. Pressure is mounting on Netanyahu from every angle, including within his own borders. In Tel Aviv, thousands have rallied against the government's Gaza strategy, demanding an end to the war and release of hostages. Netanyahu stands firm, insisting the offensive is the quickest way to peace, even as fears grow that more than 1 million Palestinians face new waves of displacement. Meanwhile, a battle over facts rages in public view. Israel denies responsibility for surging hunger in Gaza, blaming Hamas for intercepting aid convoys, a charge Hamas rebuffs. Yet, as global audiences see images of starving civilians and halted aid, political leaders everywhere are being pressed to take real, not rhetorical, stands. Here's the hard truth. If this rhetoric turns into action, the world could see the kind of diplomatic rupture that changes the map. We are talking about more than just public condemnation. Think suspension of humanitarian aid, tit-for-tat sanctions, and nations being forced to pick sides. For civilians trapped in Gaza, this could mean the humanitarian nightmare deepens. For countries like New Zealand, it risks diplomatic isolation or the opportunity to redefine their global identity, each path carrying enormous costs or rewards. So, if others choose to echo New Zealand's bold stance, are we witnessing the start of a global domino effect? Could this be the moment the world finally tips toward recognizing Palestine's statehood, reshaping alliances and the rules of engagement in global politics? But what would it actually mean if the dominoes do start to fall? To understand the stakes, let's look at how this shift could ripple through the world order. Could this be the spark that ignites a global chain reaction? If you think international politics move slowly, this moment will make you reconsider. With one blistering statement, New Zealand's Prime Minister Christopher Luxon didn't just criticize Benjamin Netanyahu, he called Israel's Gaza campaign utterly unacceptable and accused Netanyahu of having lost the plot. For the first time ever, a Western leader from a historic ally is openly considering recognition of a Palestinian state, shattering decades of diplomatic caution. This is not an isolated tremor. Australia, formerly one of Israel's most loyal partners, has now joined Canada, the United Kingdom, and France in pledging to recognize Palestine at the United Nations Conference this September. Australia's Prime Minister went so far as to accuse Netanyahu of being in denial about Gaza's humanitarian catastrophe. Meanwhile, leaders from Britain, Canada, and across Europe are demanding Israel allow unrestricted humanitarian relief into Gaza, warning that the crisis has reached what they describe as unimaginable levels. Here's what's truly at stake. If more countries join this movement, if Palestinian recognition becomes the new global standard, Israel could find itself plunged into a level of diplomatic isolation never seen before. The old world order, where only a handful dared break ranks, is eroding at breakneck speed. Each new nation stepping forward chips away at Israel's traditional support, exposing just how fragile the foundations of global alliances have become. The consequences could reshape the world map. We might see unexpected alliances forming, sweeping economic sanctions, or even a complete overhaul of how international law is applied. For Israel, the risks are enormous, not just losing crucial allies, but also facing mounting internal pressure as thousands take to the streets demanding an end to Netanyahu's war. For Netanyahu himself, the stakes are personal. Global patience is running out, and his hold on power is more unstable than ever. But amid the turmoil, there is a glimmer of hope. Widespread recognition of Palestine could finally force genuine negotiations, unleash critical humanitarian aid, or even open the door to a breakthrough for lasting peace. Yet every new development brings fresh dangers. The threat of escalation, retaliatory violence, or economic shockwaves that could ripple far beyond the region. The world now faces a pivotal choice: escalate the crisis or seize the chance for meaningful change. What happens next could alter the course of history. How to read between the headlines and why it matters. When world leaders trade sharp words, there is always more beneath the surface. To truly understand the impact, you need to look past the sound bites and into the signals that shape global politics. Take New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon's statement that Benjamin Netanyahu has lost the plot. This is not routine criticism. Coming from a traditionally cautious Western leader, it represents a dramatic public rupture with Israel's leadership and its ongoing actions in Gaza. Thousands have gathered in Tel Aviv, demanding an end to the war and the release of hostages, while Netanyahu faces mounting criticism from his own allies over a controversial new Gaza plan. As Luxon described, the attacks on Gaza City are utterly unacceptable, and the humanitarian crisis has reached unimaginable levels. Wider pressure is building. Green Party co-leader Chloe Swarbrick was ejected from New Zealand's parliament after accusing government MPs of lacking a spine for hesitating to recognize a Palestinian state. Even the House Speaker declared, "There has never been a time where personal insults like that delivered inside a speech were accepted by this House, and I'm not going to start accepting it." Why does this matter? Because when official language shifts so abruptly, it signals a possible change in the international consensus. When one country breaks from decades of deference, others may follow, and that can alter the course of recognition politics and reshape alliances. Diplomatic events like these are rarely just about the words spoken. They are about what those words reveal: alliances straining, reputations on the line, and humanitarian responsibility coming into sharper focus. If we only read the headlines, we risk missing the tremors that can precede true global shifts. So whenever you see a heated exchange between world leaders, ask yourself, who stands to gain, who takes the risk, and what dominoes might fall as a result? Because spotting these early signals can help you anticipate not just tomorrow's headlines, but tomorrow's world. Now, with the diplomatic landscape shifting, let's break down how New Zealand's move could ripple outward and what reactions the world should expect in the coming days. Stop scrolling. A world-changing move just happened, and missing it means missing your chance to get ahead of history. What's at stake? The very way nations respond to crisis and conflict could be rewritten in real time. Christopher Luxon, Prime Minister of New Zealand, just delivered a statement that shattered decades of diplomatic silence. By labeling Benjamin Netanyahu's actions as utterly unacceptable and saying he's lost the plot, Luxon made New Zealand the first significant Western nation to openly rebuke Israel's leader during the Gaza crisis. This isn't just another headline. It's a turning point that could set off a chain reaction across the Western world. As New Zealand debates recognizing Palestine, Australia, Britain, France, and Canada may soon face pressure to follow, reshaping alliances and putting real consequences on the table for humanitarian failures that have reached unimaginable extremes. A new global order may be forming, and whether you pay attention or not determines if you'll influence or simply endure the changes ahead. Stay in the loop, and you could be part of shaping tomorrow's conversations and policies, instead of being left behind as the world pivots. This is a rare watershed moment, a test of what we're willing to accept in international relations. Will you simply watch, or will you see and act on the next turn before it arrives? The next chapter in this story is already unfolding, and those who stay informed will have the power to make a difference. Will you seize this moment, or let it pass you by?